and we are doing a mixed flow today, so come and lie on your backs. Are you ready?
Yep, good to go.
Alright, so lay down on your back, feet hip distance apart. I'm just going to think of, sorry about the plane, and I'll just wait till the plane goes over. I'm right near the airport. I've changed location today. So feet hip distance apart. I'm just going to work on our connection first of all. So what are we feeling connected with the floor? So we should be feeling both feet. We should be feeling the lumbosacral junction, TL junction, both shoulder blades and the back of the head. So I'm just going to work on a few postural movements or corrections just to try and get better connected with the floor. So we'll start with the feet, and you want the weight to be balanced, so you want to feel it equally from side to side. So just be aware of which foot is feeling more pressure underneath it, and just shift the weight from side to side until you feel that you've got a better connection between both sides equally. And when you feel like you've got it balanced, if you just stop there and then think about where you're feeling the connection on the foot. Is it on the outside or is it on the inside? So if you're feeling it more on the outside, you're going to pull the inside of the foot down towards the floor, but try not to lift the outside. And then if you're feeling it more on the inside, try and lower the outside down towards the floor, but without lifting the inside of the foot. So we want to feel the weight equal from side to side of each foot, as well as feeling balance between both feet. And then we're going to work our way up to the lumbosacral junction. It's the junction between your lower back and your pelvis. And we're going to start by tilting the pelvis forwards. And by doing that, you're going to lift the spine away from the floor. And then we're going to lower the spine down towards the floor. So we're tilting in a posterior direction, posterior pelvic tilt, and anterior, posterior. So rocking backwards and forwards, lifting the spine and lowering the spine. Try not to tense the tummy muscles when we're doing this, so we're not doing like a clench. It's just a movement of the pelvis and the spine. Using your core to make the movement. And then we're just going to stop in the midpoint between the end ranges, where your lower back should be flat on the floor. We shouldn't have a gap underneath the spine, and we shouldn't have the spine caved into the floor. And then we're just going to work our way to the TL junction. So we want the rib cage and the pelvis to be parallel. So we want to think of them like the pages of a book. We don't want the pages to be open. So when the pages are open, we'll get this lumbar extension and rib flaring. So we're going to pull the pages together, like we're closing the book, to make them parallel, so make the rib cage and pelvis parallel. And by doing so, you'll feel a better connection underneath the TL junction. And then we'll go to the shoulder blades. So both shoulder blades want to be balanced, so you want to feel the weight underneath both equally. So again, we're just going to shift the weight side to side until you can feel it equal both sides. And then the shoulders themselves want to be in a neutral position. So what we want to avoid is this internally rotated, protracted and elevated position. We want to externally rotate, depress and slightly retract. So imagine we're trying to pull the shoulder blades down towards the back pockets. And then we're going to work our way up to the head. So the head wants to be pushed straight back down towards the floor. Look up towards the ceiling. Try not to let your neck tilt backwards, so into neck extension. And try not to tuck the chin so that you're going into neck flexion. We're going straight back down. You want to feel those muscles at the front of the neck switch on. And now we should be feeling nice and connected underneath both feet, lumbosacral junction, TL junction, shoulder blades and the back of the head. So now we're going to work on our breathing. So one hand on the chest, one hand on the tummy. Just going to think about trying to get the breath in the right order first of all. So as we breathe in, diaphragm should go down. And by doing so, the hand on the tummy should lift up as we breathe in. And then as we breathe out, the hand on the tummy wants to lower. Hand on the chest doesn't want to move anywhere. If you can feel the hand on the chest lifting or going up towards the head as we breathe in, you've got your breathing in the wrong order and you'll be using your secondary muscles of respiration. So we need to try and get it in the, sorry about the plane again, in the reverse to that. So hand on the chest doesn't want to move anywhere. Hand on the tummy wants to lift as we're breathing in and lower as we're breathing out. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth through pursed lips. Once we've got the breath in the right order, we're going to grab hold of the waist. Try not to let the shoulders push forwards. Try and keep them neutral as possible. And what we're going to do now that we've got the breath in the right order, we're going to create our 360-degree breath. So as we breathe in, we want to feel all the muscles underneath the hands. So front, back and sides of the abdominal wall lift. So expanding outwards as we breathe in. We want to feel it equal from side to side and from front to back. So to try and activate the muscles to let your brain know where they are. Cough, feel that expansion. And then think about those muscles as you're breathing in. So really try and visualise those muscles trying to lift and push your hands away. One area you're struggling with, like me, who actually will struggle on the right hand side. Clamp hold, give it a bit of a press, a poke, a prod. Cough again. And then just really try and visualise the side or the back, if it's the back that you're struggling with. Inflating and pushing the hands away. And breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, through pursed lips. Imagine you're blowing through a straw. now we've got the 360-degree breath, we're going to work on the brace. So when we're doing something that needs more stabilisation, we need to be able to brace appropriately. So a brace is an outward push, it's not a clench or a tense, you don't suck the belly button in. So we're going to be breathing and expanding, 360 degrees. And then before you take your breath out, do an outward push like you're imagining that you're farting. And try not to let the muscles back away from the hands as you're breathing out. As well, think about your pelvic floor. So as your diaphragm goes down, your pelvic floor goes in the same direction. So imagine your pelvic floor pushing downwards as you're breathing in and relaxing as you're breathing out. One more breath. So try and think about your breath throughout the flow. So we're just going to start by taking one leg up into the air and lower, and lift the opposite leg and lower, lift the other leg, lower. So alternating sides. And then what we want to do is we're going to breathe 360 degrees, create our outward brace, and lift the legs and lower, and lift and lower. Trying not to let the pelvis tilt forwards. So as we breathe in, so as we lift the legs, we don't want the pelvis to jut forward. Since this anterior tilts, we'll lose the lumbar spine. We need to be able to control movement of the hips without letting the pelvis and the lumbar spine move at the same time. Because we need to be able to do this day to day to avoid overloading the lower back when we do things like sitting and standing from sitting, when we walk. We need to be able to control that movement. So the movement's just coming from the hips. And then we're just going to lift the legs up into the 3-month supine position. So we want the feet to be slightly higher than the knees. Knees over the hips, so hips at 90 degrees, hips in slight external rotation, feet neutral. I'm just going to hold it there. Take the arms up into the air, fingertips pointed to the ceiling, and then flex one shoulder backwards, thumb touching the floor. Other arm goes back, thumb touching the floor, alternating. Trying not to let the rib cage lift and disconnect from the pelvis. So if you feel like you're getting to a point where you're starting to lift the ribs, just pause there, take a breath in, and lower the arm back on the exhalation. Pause the hands at the top, and then we're just going to do some toe taps, alternating. Keeping that lower back nice and still, neutral spine, neutral pelvis. And then we're going to take one arm, one leg. So opposite arm and leg. Again, rib cage and pelvis stay connected. Neutral spine, neutral pelvis. Just bring your knees in, give your hip flexors a little bit of a rest. Back up. And then we're just going to take both arms backwards. Take both legs back down. Take both arms back. Both legs. Both arms, both legs. And then see if you can do both arms and both legs at the same time. Trying to keep the ribs and pelvis connected, neutral spine, neutral pelvis. Couple more. Last one. Again, bring your knees in. Give your hips a little rest. And then what we want to do is go from a 3-month supine and then try and lift the pelvis off the floor slightly. So we're taking the feet a little bit higher. And lowering back into 3-month supine, so flexing the hips a little bit more. Lifting and lowering. Keep focusing on your breath. Do one more. Now take your arms up into the air, fingertips pointed to the ceiling. Lift the head slightly, look to the direction you're going to be rolling. We're just going to roll, nice and controlled. And then roll back, and onto the other side. We want to keep the ribs and pelvis, the shoulders and pelvis should I say, moving at the same time, so we don't want them just to disconnect. So you don't want to go shoulders first, then pelvis, or pelvis, then shoulders. And you want to end up with a nice straight spine, so we're not bananaed. So learning to rotate and not disconnect the shoulders, ribs from the pelvis and lower back is really important, particularly for people who struggle with back pain when they turn over at night. So this would be a good one for them to do. So anyone who struggles with back pain when they turn over at night, this would be really nice to teach you how to rotate without disconnecting. Top hand wants to imagine it's reaching for something. And then roll onto one side, up into the low oblique sit. And then we're going to go from low oblique, so keep the spine nice and straight. Try not to let the spine collapse, shoulder push forwards. We want a nice active shoulder, nice straight spine, long neck. And we're going to push up into high oblique sit and low. High, low, high, low. And then twist round into a high oblique sit twist. Feel that nice rotation through the spine. Nice stretch, so make a really nice long spine as well. Try not to round into it. Shoulders active again. And then down into low oblique sit twist. I'm just going to come into pigeon stretch, so pull that leg round. So underneath your body, other leg outstretched backwards. I'm just going to hold that position. So you can either do it on your hands or get more of a stretch down on your forearms. Lengthen through the spine. And then we're going to go into an active pigeon stretch. So we're going to push the knee down into the floor and the shin. And using that glute, you're going to lift forwards. Feel that activation in the glute, and then lower back down and get a bit more of a stretch. And lift, and lower. And lift. And lower. Curl the back foot under. You're going to pull through into bear and then bring the other leg round into pigeon. Curl the back foot under, bring it into bear. Go into the opposite pigeon and back into bear. Through. Back into bear. Through. Back into bear. And then through. Down into the opposite pigeon. And then we're just going to hold that position. So either on your hands or down on your forearms. Try and lengthen through the spine. And then up onto the hands, so we can do the active pigeon stretch. Shoulders active, long spine. And then push down into the floor using that bum. And then lower down. Lift. Lower. Lift. Lower. And then you're going to pull around into your oblique sit. And we're going to be going into from high oblique into low oblique. High oblique, low oblique, high, low. So up and down. And then come into this high oblique twist. Down into lower oblique twist. Lengthen through the spine again, trying to pull that upper back towards the floor. And then we're going to come up and we're going to do some oblique, some hip twists. So we're going to pull the knees up to the ceiling and then round to the opposite direction and then through and round. And what I'd like you to do, if you can, if this isn't good for you, if your knees hurt when you do this, then just stick with the hip twists. But if we hinge forwards and lift, and then lower down, twist the knees, round, lift the opposite side, down. But like I say, if your knees don't like to do this, then just do the hip twists without the lift. Rather you do that than cause yourself pain. So just do hips. If your knees are a bit sore doing the lifts. Increasing that internal, external rotation in the hips. And then we're going to go into a tripod from this position. So, if you have got your sore knees and you've only been doing the hip twist, get your block and just put it underneath your bum. And we're only just going to be doing the lift once now, so we're going to hinge forwards, up, into tripod. Okay, so hands flat on the floor, one leg back, one leg forwards, and then we're just going to hinge backwards, Again, if your knees get sore, you could put, just thought this, pillow underneath the back knee. Just to give it a bit of cushioning. So I'll just turn around. And you don't have to go all the way back. Only go as far as your knee will allow. So if you can just go here, that's great. If you can get a little bit further, perfect, but it doesn't matter if you can't. We're just trying to make sure that we keep this nice straight spine as we're doing it. And forwards, back. And then up into high kneel. So not too narrow, bring it to the side, and again we're going to hinge backwards. Again, only as far as your back knee is going to allow. So if you can only go this far, absolutely fine. Don't force it. And then from high kneel, make sure your pelvis is level with the floor. So we're going to go through this in the tutorial in a little bit. Knee tracking second and third toe, neutral spine, nice and straight spine, curl the back foot under, arms up, lean forwards and stand. Take that leg back again, lower down, keeping the pelvis level with the floor. Stand, lower, stand, lower. Trying to perfect this movement pattern each time. Just go really slowly down if you can. Do one more. Hands down, into tripod, come into bear, other leg forwards, and then we're going to hinge again. So, hinge backwards. Up into high kneel hinge, only going as far back as your knee will allow. It doesn't mean you're not doing it right if you can't get back as far. One more. High kneel, so parallel pelvis with the floor again, neutral spine, knee tracking second and third toe. I'm going to stand and lower, stand, lower, stand, lower, stand, slowly down, and then we're going to stand, and then from standing we're going to roll down, walk the hands out into downward dog, lower the knees, into bear, lower into quadruped, lower into low quadruped. So we want about 90 degrees hip flexion, elbows in line with the ears. We're going to find the neutral spine, so tilting the pelvis backwards and forwards. Find the midpoint, shoulders active, push the floor away with your forearms, pull the upper back down towards the floor, trying to increase that thoracic extension, trying to get out of that flexed thoracic spine that we all get from sitting for too long in poor posture. So pulling that upper back down towards the floor without losing it into the lower back, into lumbar extension. We want to keep the lumbar spine in neutral, and then we're going to hinge backwards and forwards. Hinge backwards and forwards and backwards, forwards, trying to keep this movement coming from the extremities, not the spine and pelvis. The pelvis and spine want to stay completely still, only moving forwards and backwards. And then we're going to keep the forearms on the floor. We're going to lift the bum in the air, so we're extending the knees and lower. Again, try and keep this movement just coming from the knees now, so the lumbar spine and pelvis and hips don't move anywhere. Lifting and lowering. And then what I want you to do now, from this low quadruped position, you're going to extend one leg back, drop the hip to the floor, and then lift back up, pulling that knee in, then lower the other side, and bring the knee back in, keeping the shoulders active. This is really working the shoulders at the moment. So extend one hip and knee, lower the hip to the floor, pull them back in into neutral, rotate the opposite side. One more each side. And then take both legs down, or both legs back. We're going to go into 3-month prone. Okay, so lay on our front, forearms in this kind of diamond shape, elbows in line with the ears. We want to rock the pelvis backwards and forwards, find the neutral, so the pubic bone wants to feel like it's pushing down into the floor. We don't want like the the tummy muscles to be pushed into the floor, and we don't want the ribs, if your rib cage, lower rib cage is feeling like it's pressing into the floor, we need to try and connect the rib cage and pelvis together. So imagine we're closing the book, pulling the pubic bone towards the floor. Try not to squeeze the bum muscles. Make sure you've got your neutral spine, neutral pelvis, and then we're just going to push the floor away with the forearms and lift the head. I don't want you to extend through the lower back, so be really careful not to do that, because you're just going to end up bashing your facet joints together, so in a simple way of saying it. So you don't want to do that, because you're going to end up irritating your lower back. So we want to keep the neutral spine, so your pubic bone wants to stay on the floor. We don't want to overextend the lower back, so we want to keep that in a neutral position. So we're just trying to hold this position. If you feel like you can't hold it for very long, that's fine, just lower your head back down. And lift. So really working the shoulder muscles at the minute. Retraining that scapular stabilisation. Lower if you need to. Lift one more time. Try and make sure this movement isn't coming from the lower back, so you're not overextending your lower back. Your lower back wants to stay in the same position, in a neutral position, pelvis neutral. Lower down. Bring your elbows into the sides. Hands flat, and we're just going to push ourselves up into 6-month prone. Fingertips middle finger pointing forwards. Again, we want to keep neutral spine, so try not to let that lumbar spine go into extension, because I can feel that in my lower back right away. So we're keeping the hips high, neutral spine, neutral pelvis, trying to extend through the upper back, but not the lower back, and we're just holding this position. Keep breathing. Hands fully connected with the floor. Try not to let the inner part of the hand lift up. Walk the hands back a little bit into quadruped. Again, we'll find neutral spine, rock the pelvis backwards and forwards. Upper back nice and flat and long. And then we're going to hinge backwards, hinging the hip. Try and keep the spine as neutral as possible. Upper back nice and flat. And as you come forward, don't let the lumbar spine go into extension. Rocking backwards and forwards, keeping that spine position nice and controlled. And then pause there. We're going to curl the back feet under. Neutral spine. Lift the bum in the air into bear and lower. And rock backwards. And then lift the bum into bear, down, rock backwards. And then lift, lower, rock backwards. Lift, lower, rock backwards, lift, lower, rock backwards. This time lift, stay lifted. We're going to hinge the hip again. So this time hinging in bear position from low bear to high bear. Rock forwards and back. Forwards legs a little shake off. And then we're going to go into a squat, so just come forward a little bit. Find your neutral spine. Lift your bum, hinge your hips backwards, walk the hands backwards into squat. Try and hold that position. Nice long spine, try not to let your upper back round. Feel that stretch in the ankles, in the calves, so trying to increase that dorsiflexion in the feet, in the ankles should I say. And then stand, and lower, stand, lower. Try and keep the spine nice and neutral, or lower spine and pelvis nice and neutral, and the upper back nice and long. Last one, and we're done.